when we started practice back in September and looking at the strength of the ACC and looking at where we fit into that picture, I'm very, very happy what we were able to accomplish. You know, you got to remember, it's much easier to look back than to look forward. But looking forward at last year, you had Duke, the consensus preseason #1. You had Carolina and Virginia in the top 5. You had Louisville in the top 10. You had Notre Dame in the top 15. You had Florida State was loaded maybe with their best team ever. Syracuse was just coming off a Final Four, and they looked like they were going to be very strong again, so on and so forth. Virginia Tech was going to have a really strong team. So we didn't know where we were in that pecking order. And when we looked at our roster and said, well, we only have 2 seniors and 1 junior, so it's not like we have a ton of upperclassmen to lead the way. We have good upperclassmen, but we're going to need these younger guys, the freshmen and the sophomores, to really step up. And not until those guys did, maybe in the second round of games in the ACC, starting with our road win at NC State, did I ever feel like, hey, this is a caliber team that could really compete with the best teams in the country. And doing what we did, I think we went on a 7-win, 2-loss part of our season in February, early March. And when I looked at our schedule, when it finally came out, like, when do we get it, Amy? In August? When I looked at the end of the schedule, and our last 4 games were at Virginia, Duke at home, at Virginia Tech, at Florida State, and I'm saying, oh my goodness, that's a very, very hard way to end the regular season for such a young team. But looking back now, I think guys did a really good job. And I can really look forward now to the returning players who have been through it and say, okay, I know where these guys are now. We really got to give them help to prepare them to be much better at the start of this year than they were. But at the same time, I know we're going to have to help these 4 incoming guys. Well, actually 3. Sam Wardenberg's already here and working out.
Jim, how much has that changed in the landscape of college basketball? Because now everybody's young. I mean, everybody has to.
I cannot believe what I'm seeing. There was always talk years ago that if a coach left, that the players that he had recruited to his program, especially recruits who hadn't arrived yet, should be given a release and be able to go wherever they want, transfer out without penalty. Well, it seems like now everybody's transferring out even with the penalty. There's kids going everywhere. I cannot tell you or forecast what the ACC is going to look like for at least another 2 months, because everyone in our league is still recruiting. We will be recruiting probably until the end of June. Maybe some teams like us last year, we were still recruiting in August. So it's very, very challenging. So I've seen some of the way too early preseason top 25 polls, and in terms of Miami, we're all over the place. I've seen us pick as high as 5th, and then kind of towards the tail end of the top 25. And I'm sure some polls are not going to have us in the top 25.
How do you balance picking the polished kid as opposed to maybe a project who you know ain't going to help you until 2nd or 3rd year?
There are no such kids as that.
Right.
No kid thinks he's not ready to play right away. It's not until he gets into your program and starts competing against other guys, and then for the most case, players are always going to have a high estimation of their own capabilities. And it's kind of up to the coach to paint a more realistic picture for him, especially early on in his career.
Given the way the transfer, given the way the transfer market can develop, continues to develop, how do you even assess what the needs of your team are and what you might be able to go out and get, I guess?
Well, for the present, we know we need a transfer guard to sit out. And we know we need a front court player, hopefully a versatile guy that can shoot threes, a front court player who could play right away. Well, that limits your category to fifth-year transfers or a high school senior. We've already kind of exhausted our interest in high school seniors. So we really are in the market for a fifth-year front court player and a 4-year transfer at the guard position. Very simply, looking at our roster, we know Jaquan Newton's gonna graduate. There's a strong likelihood now that a guy like Bruce Brown, if he continues his development, will be 2 and done. Lonnie Walker, by many of the evaluators, is projecting him to be 1 and done. So if you lose a Jaquan Newton, a Bruce Brown, and a Lonnie Walker all in 1 year, that's hard to replace in the recruiting process. So we're trying to do that now. We're trying to find a player who's capable of practicing with us, understudying those guys, learn our system, and then be ready to step in and play a major role the following season.
Jim, do recruits ask you how much longer you plan to coach?
Yeah, I had a dad ask me, he said there was a rumor I was going to be retiring. I said, well, that's fake news right there. I have no intentions of retiring. I want to coach as long as I can. I love the University of Miami, and as long as they'll have me, I'm going to be here. And my contract, I don't know, is that public information or not?
Yeah, 2022.
Yes, it
What?
It is.
Michelle, maybe.
Okay,
The
so,
amount too that you get paid is public. You can tell us, share with us.
no, that's the money that goes to my wife. I'm on an allowance. So, 2022. So the kids who are now, what, sophomores in high school, I can still tell them, hey, I'm going to be here.
How do you ward off the temptation to think about shutting it down? I mean, what is it that keeps...
The temptation, no. Are you kidding me? I have so many friends who have retired who are miserable.
Okay.
I've talked to a friend of mine the other day, and he says, I got to get back working. I said, what, you're 72? He said, I know, there's nothing to do. You can't keep busy enough to feel like you're, doing things that are worthwhile. I mean, I'm not a golfer, I don't play tennis anymore. My fun is being on the court with the players. And as long as I can be productive and as long as my players enjoy being around me, and I'm going to continue to coach as long as I can.
I want to ask about Bruce. I mean, I don't think anyone in this room thought he was going to go anywhere, but it was like announcements that he was staying. Is that news to you? I mean,
well, it is, because when you go outside of the area and you go into the new realm of NBA basketball, everything is about being 1 and done. And so you have agents talking about it, you have NBA scouts evaluating younger players, you have the combine that's coming up, you have the draft that's going to be coming up, and so people are constantly asking Bruce, constantly. Kids on campus, friends of his, family, what are you going to do, what are you going to do? So it was important for us to sit down and talk with Bruce. Coach Caputo sat down with him individually. Coach Brunt sat down with him individually, and the two of them collectively sat down with him and his AAU coach to discuss the possibilities, and then I also talked to him individually. So Bruce had multiple conversations, plus I talked to his mom, Bruce talked with his mom, and you have to do your research to figure out what's best. But after all those discussions, it became very, very clear that Bruce felt that the best decision to make was to come back to the University of Miami and work at improving his game and getting ready for next year. But with that in mind, there are a lot of people feel like beyond next year, it'd be very doubtful whether he'll remain in college, because he's going to be very capable of putting his name in the draft and can conceivably be a, first-round draft pick.
He's discussed his handle. He can tighten that up. He can shoot. He can be more of a dominant scorer. He kind of said everything from a coach's perspective. What do you think he can improve?
Well, when I look at the player and look at the projection of where he would play in the NBA, you've got to be ready to play that position immediately. The NBA is not about development. It's not that you don't develop while you're in the NBA through age and experience and skills, but if you go there and you're ill-prepared, then you sit at the end of the bench. They send you to the D-League. And none of those guys who are going think they're going to the D-League. They all think they're going to start or be in the rotation. So we want to prepare Bruce and everybody else on our team to be in a position to be the best that they can be once they get there. And whether it's after your freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, or senior year, you want to walk in and be as well prepared as possible, whether you're drafted or not. Do you know how many guys got drafted last year that didn't play in the NBA this year? It's quite a few. Do you know the number of guys that didn't get drafted that played in the NBA this year? I don't have my phone with me, but I can show you. It's like 14. Sheldon McClellan is one of them. Mike Tobey from Virginia is another one. Yogi Ferrell from Indiana is a third. There are like 14 guys that didn't get drafted that are in the league because they were ready to play at the NBA level. Even though they were older guys, they didn't get drafted because you're too old. We're going to draft potential. We're going to draft a freshman or a sophomore. Of the guys who are looking to be drafted in the lottery I believe right now is considered the first 14. At least 10 of them are going to be freshmen. At least 10 are going to be freshmen. And probably 2 are going to be international kids. And then there's going to be like 1 or 2 upperclassmen, someone like Justin Jackson from Carolina.
Jim, when you coached before, you won with college guys. You know, you had a lot of NBA guys, but you won with college guys, right? I mean, does it go back to that? If you want to win a championship, do you have to play with college guys, or do you have to reach for always the NBA guys?
You know, that's a very good question, and it's a very hard one to answer, because in the recruiting process, it's hard to project a guy that's going to be able to win for you at this level when he's not one of the better players in high school. Now, he's a good player, but do you project him to be a starter and a star in the ACC by the time he's a junior and senior? So what we've done is we've examined all of the different categories for recruiting. So in Angel Rodriguez and Sheldon McClellan's case, transfers. Now they're older and proven college players. They started at Texas and Kansas State. There's a good chance they can start for us, but when they come and start for us, they'll be 21, 22 years old. So there has to be a balance on your roster. Right now, we're very imbalanced, and it's very unfortunate. Next year, we only project to have 1 senior. One of our goals right now is to recruit a 5th-year senior who already has proven himself at a high level and can step in and not only play well, but provide some leadership qualities. We're looking for a kid who knows how to lead. How hard do you practice? How hard do you work in the weight room? Are you on time? Are you responsible? Are you accountable? Are you a good role model? Because in our program, you have to be all those things. Our players work with the young kids in the community. You can't be one of those guys that's high maintenance. We're not looking for a guy like that. Oh, this kid's got great talent. No, everybody's got good talent once you reach 21, 22 years old and have been successful at the college level. It's, do you have the intangible qualities that can help lead us to a championship?
You mentioned Walker. A lot of people think one and done, like you said, but how do you sort of envision him being used by you? What sort of things can he do for you, his talent level?
Well, I wouldn't use the term used. I would say, okay, in Lonnie Walker's case, what would his role be? What are the things that he can do already that we can take advantage of? And what are the areas that he's going to need to work on that he can become the kind of player and prove to NBA scouts that he deserves to be drafted after only 1 year of college? And you have different categories. The first category, which invariably all freshmen need to work on, is defense. And so in Lonnie's case, the first thing we will address with him is how do you become a lockdown defender? Because at your size, you're going to play against some of the greatest players in the world who are 6'5", 6'6", who have been in the NBA for 5, 7, 10, 12 years. Guys like Dwayne Wade. How do you go against a guy like that? So NBA all-star caliber players. Suppose you have to match up with Russell Westbrook. Can you guard a guy like that? Because if you can, it's very hard to earn playing time at the NBA because everybody in the league is so talented offensively. So while you're working with him on his defense, you're kind of orchestrating your offense to take advantage of his strengths. But you do that for all the players. It's not just a Lonnie Walker, but you do things that take advantage of their strengths. And in that particular case, Lonnie is a high-octane open court player. Great at taking the ball to the basket and scoring in a variety of ways. Layups, dunks, floaters, pull-up jumpers. But he also is an outstanding three-point shooter. Now, the area you have to work on is shot selection. There are a lot of guys that got the green light in high school that find out, I'm not going to average 25 shots a game. The college game is very different because of defense. And college defense is far more difficult to score against than most high school situations. In most high school situations, you're not playing against Division I highest level ACC caliber players every night. And those ACC caliber players are not just at your position, but they're in the front court, and they're 6'9", 6'10", 7'3", 7'5", you've never faced before. So you have some things you have to learn offensively as well. And you're going to be making some serious adjustments all during the first several months of your freshman year.
What's your evaluation of DeJuan's freshman year, and what do you envision?
I really liked, first of all, his attitude was sensational. His effort and commitment to the program and to what we were doing was sensational. And I like the progress he's made. I don't think anyone will recognize him next year. That's my projection. My forecast is DeJuan will be a double-double guy next season.
Why do you have so much confidence in that? What do you see and what do you think he'll do?
I don't know, maybe 45 years of experience of evaluating players and seeing them develop.
Is he going to look different physically?
What?
Is he going to look quite a bit different physically?
Oh, yeah, he was 239 this morning. Now, he came in at 215. One thing it's hard to do is gain weight and strength and keep playing well. Because as you're gaining weight, your body is changing. As you're gaining strength, your body is changing. And you're constantly making adjustments. Eventually, your body becomes more comfortable to you. And you can utilize it better. As a freshman, whether it was Tanya Jakiri or Buka Zundu or DeJuan Ewell, I see them. When they first start out, they're getting pushed around. And then they push back, but every time they push back, it's a foul. Because they don't have the strength. They start using their hands, they're holding, grabbing. And I remember with Tanya, going against Reggie Johnson and Julian Gamble and Rafael Akabajuri, when I told him, listen, you can't post up at the three-point circle. You got to post up on the low block. He said, I can't. I said, why not? They pushing me. I said, push them back. I can't. They're too strong. The message then, I didn't have to say to him, hey, you got to get stronger. He knew. And that's Buka the same way, learning from Tanya. Now, the difference is for Buka and Dewan and Rodney this year, there was no senior like that. There was no junior like that. We had Kamari Murphy, who weighed 220. Had Anthony Lawrence, who weighs 215. It's not the same. So the only way you learn is throw them into the fire. And so they battled against the Kennedy Meeks and the Isaiah Hicks and the Kumajis and the Michael Ojos, all these different big guys in the league. And they're learning, and they're studying, and they're improving. And based on my experience and my view of what these guys will do during the off season, I think they'll be much better prepared next year to have a chance to average double-figure points and maybe double-figure rebounds. The rebounds might be harder than the points.
Jim, what do you want to see from DJ, since we've touched on Larran and Bruce? What do you want him to do with his next step?
In DJ's case, because of the speed and athletic ability at this level, we've asked him to get in the best shape of his life. It wasn't that he couldn't run. It's that he was probably carrying probably 10 pounds too much. He's going to have to reduce his body fat and his pounds so that he can be as quick as possible. Because from a defensive standpoint, his improvement was dramatic. In the beginning of the year, I wondered if I'd be able to play him. And by early to mid-January, I loved the progress he was making, and I never doubted he could go in and guard guys. That doesn't mean he's going to stop him. It's not like he's all defense. But he wasn't hurting us. He was shutting guys off. He was contesting shots. But you got to remember, he's only maybe 6'2", and he's not the high-flying athlete. So what he's going to do is work on his ball handling, so he can play multiple positions. He's going to work on his strength and conditioning, get his weight down a little bit, and then try to become a great three-point shooter. I thought he was good this year. We think he's capable of being even better.
Coach, were you surprised / disappointed at the ACC? There was so much talk all season about the ACC being so strong, so strong, so strong. And yes, North Carolina won the national title, and you beat them, by the way. But other than that, a lot of teams did not make the Sweet 16. And were you surprised, disappointed?
Well, what I would say is the ACC had a fantastic regular season, non-conference and conference. But you can't undervalue or underestimate the quality of play in other leagues. The Big Ten is very, very good. The Big 12 is very, very good. The SEC was very, very good. Pac-12 was very, very good. That's why they're referred to as high majors. Their players are of the highest caliber. They were all recruited by ACC schools. Those same players could have been in our league. Our guys could have been in the Big Ten or SEC because they were all recruited at that level. So when you face them in a one and survive in advance and lose and go home tournament, you know, anything can happen. You can have a bad game, you can have a great game. So if you shuffled the deck and reseeded the tournament and we played a different opponent, we might have been seated lower and still won the game. You just don't know. Sometimes it just has to do with the matchup. I think Tom Izzo, if I read the quote correctly, said that their game against Miami was the best game they played all season. So they played their best game. We played one of our worst. Now, I don't know why we did that day. I do know this. Our defense against Carolina in the ACC tournament and our defense against Michigan State was not as consistent as it had been all season long. So if I could figure that out, we would have won those games. But we prepared for them and thought we were very well prepared to play Carolina again for the second time because we had beaten them at home here. And we thought we were very well prepared to play Michigan State.
Jim, if you were pleasantly surprised at the end of the season, not knowing what you had early on, how would you characterize going into next season?
Well, it's a little early for me to project how good we can be for the same reason last year. The league is really unpredictable. There's still, I can't remember what the date is for guys to announce for the draft, but we could still have a half a dozen guys leave and go to the NBA. And if they do, that would dramatically change the caliber of the team they're leaving. So right now, we don't project anybody leaving. We're projecting the 4 kids that we recruited will be here. We're hoping we'll have at least 1 additional player. And by September, after working with the kids in the summer, we should have a much better feel for where we are in relationship to the rest of the league. And we'll see that, like, how far has DeJuan progressed between now and September. Because if he progresses like we anticipate he will, we're going to be a much better team with him being able to be a go-to guy. You know, if you look at us this past season, and I asked you who's our go-to guy in the low post, what was your answer?
Don't have one.
Kamari.
We didn't have someone that you.
Kamari.
7-game stretch, maybe.
Well, that's not a go-to guy in the low post. You know, he played very well throughout February and March, but what I'm referring to is, do you have someone like Kennedy Meeks that you can throw the ball to and he's going to score? Do we have someone like I know the league, this is very, very strange, doesn't have a lot of low post guys, and even the ones that are really good in the low post, guys like Zach Leday, John Collins. Now there's a go-to guy in the low post where he had the ability to score with his back to the basket. Aren't a lot of guys like that in the league. Not a lot of guys like that in the NBA today.
Is that DeJuan, you see him as kind of a back-to-the-basket guy, or is he going to face up a little bit, kind of inside-outside?
Well, again, we're going to be working with him on all aspects of his game, hoping to develop him as a low post presence. We want Buka Azundu to be able to do the same, but at the same time, we'd like him to be able to step out and go to the high post, maybe able to shoot a perimeter jump shot like Kamari Murphy would do from time to time, or drive the ball to the basket like Anthony Lawrence does from time to time.
While we're on players, what do you think? I guess what do you expect from Rodney Miller?
Well, Rodney had the greatest challenge to overcome. He had not lifted weights, so he needed to get much stronger. He had limited playing time in high school because he played on such a loaded team at Oak Hill Academy. He had some issues with conditioning, and he had some strengths that we were going to have a hard time taking advantage of, because if you're not in great shape and you can't play a lot of quality minutes, but I think he's very much headed in the right direction. I'm very pleased with his progress. And he could conceivably step into a much more significant role if he continues to do what I'm hoping he'll do.
What did you think of the officiating of the title game?
I thought it was terrific. I thought the referees have really caught a bum rap. I read an article, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. If you're in baseball and a pitcher is walking a lot of batters and you're frustrated, you know, there's no hits, there's no strikeouts, there's no action, well, it's due to ineffectiveness of the pitcher. He's not throwing enough strikes. In basketball, if you're not making free throws, teams shot 50% from the foul line. They're not making threes, and everything's played like right by the rim. Well, right by the rim is very physical, and there's no shots going in, there's going to be a lot of fouls. And it ended up being that. It was a non-artistic game. Not a lot of fast breaks, not a lot of great shooting, not a lot of great ball handling, just great defense and great competition and very competitive rebounding. And I think either team could have won that game by the way the game was played, but I didn't think the officiating impacted it as much as the execution. And I thought both coaches said that after the game. I think Roy said, man, our offense stinks right now. And I'm sure Mark Few felt the same way, that, you know, Karsnowski, did you see some of the shots he missed? He never misses those. Little left-handed jump hook, that little bank shot. When he missed, I was like, holy mackerel, what's going on?
Just tight, you think?
No, I just think the games that, first of all, both teams are so good defensively that if you look at their opponent's stats throughout the season, nobody shot well against Gonzaga. They're #1 in the country in field goal percentage defense. Well, Carolina's not a great shooting team, are they? We zoned them, and they didn't make any shots. What did they make from 3 against us? So if you're not a great three-point shooting team and you have these huge guys in Gonzaga inside making it hard on Meeks and Tony Bradley and Hicks, okay, Carolina's going to have a hard time getting to 80, which they normally do. And then at the other end of the floor, you got Carolina, who's got Meeks and Hicks, Bradley and May. They're big, and they make it very hard on you to score it around the basket. And the game is going to be a little bit ugly. That makes it very hard on the officials. And 2 of those guys I'm very familiar with because they work the ACC in Mike Eads and Michael Stevens. And if you ask me, they're the 2 of the very, very best. If you rank them in officials in the top 5 or top 10, they'd be in the top 5. And that's why they work the championship game. They earn that.
Thoughts on Patrick Ewing at Georgetown?
It's a very interesting hire. I guess because of my experience in college, I tend to think college coaching, the global view of college coaching, recruiting, all the different stuffs, academics, and all the different things you have to do, it's very, very different than the professional game, especially the NBA. So I think he'll have a major adjustment if he finds the right staff to balance his strengths and kind of whatever his shortcomings are, to give him some balance within his staff. Then obviously his name and reputation as a player, and I know from following the NBA closely that people in the NBA thinks he was ready for a head coaching job in the league, and we're kind of surprised he didn't get a head coaching job yet.
I want to ask you for your case. We've been asked about Likes or Gak, kind of what they could be, what their roles could be in year 1.
Well, Chris Likes' job is to be Chris Likes. He doesn't have to do anything but just be the best that he can be. He will, like all freshmen, have to learn to play college defense. But he'll be the Energizer Bunny. No matter what his role is, he'll be a catalyst for us at both ends of the court. Guys will like playing with him. He'll make them better players, like Jaquan and Lonnie, Bruce, and they'll all want him on the court because he's a high energy, high octane, just a ball of energy type guy.
And what about Gak?
Dang is very similar to where Dewan was last year, and then maybe even a little further back because of strength and weight. At his size and length, he's got a lot of potential. He's going to have to get stronger and gain some weight, because the first thing that's going to happen is everybody's going to start trying to push him around. And until he's able to push back successfully, he's going to find it a little bit challenging.